When people talk about the greatest point guard in NBA history, for decades, right? For decades, there's been really not much of a conversation, right? It was Magic Johnson. I know, you know, we all know it's Magic Johnson. 5 championships, 3 MVPs, 3 Finals MVPs, 9 trips to the finals, the face of Showtime Lakers, one of the greatest passers and offensive engines basketball has ever seen. But then Steph Curry happened, and now we have a legitimate question, right? Is Steph Curry actually better than Magic Johnson? Not greater as a shooter, right? Because that's obvious. Not more influential or on modern basketball. Steph probably wins that argument too. Better overall. If I'm building a basketball team and I get the entire career of one of these guys, is there actually a reasonable argument that I should take Steph? I think there is, but Magic's case is still incredibly difficult to overcome. But today we're breaking down the argument from both sides. And so before making Steph's case, you have to understand exactly what he's chasing, right? Magic Johnson entered the NBA in 1979 and almost immediately became one of the best players in basketball. As a rookie, he helped the Lakers win the championship and famously stepped in a massive role in Game 6 of the finals when Kareem was unavailable. From there, Magic became the engine of the Showtime Lakers. Over his career, he won 5 NBA championships, 3 regular season MVPs, 3 Finals MVPs. He made the finals 9 times in 12 seasons before his initial retirement. And his career averages are roughly around 19 points, 11 assists, 7 rebounds. And so think about that. Magic averaged over 11 assists for his entire career. And he wasn't just throwing passes, right? At 6'9", Magic completely changed what people thought a point guard could be. He could grab the rebound himself and immediately push the ball up the floor, then create a transition opportunity without needing an outlet pass. He could run the half-court offense. He could post up smaller guards. He could manipulate defenses with his eyes. He could hit cutters from angles most players couldn't even see. And so Magic wasn't simply a passer. He was an entire offensive system, right? And that's the biggest obstacle for Steph, because Magic's resume doesn't really have any major weakness. But at the same time, Steph Curry changed the geometry of basketball. Magic controlled defenses with the ball. Stephen Curry controlled defenses without the ball. And that's where this debate gets interesting. Steph Curry is the greatest shooter basketball has ever seen. But sometimes calling him the greatest shooter ever actually undersells what he does. Because Steph isn't simply a guy who shoots 40+% from 3. His shooting ability completely changes where defenses are allowed to stand. Traditionally, NBA defenses were designed to protect the paint first. Steph forced defenses to start worrying about somebody pulling up from 30 feet away. And that simply is just a different category. That sounds simple until you understand the consequences. If Steph Curry crosses half court and the defense is already worried about his shot, the entire floor gets stretched. Big men have to come up higher. Help defenders have farther to travel. Driving lanes become larger. Backdoor cuts become even more dangerous. Draymond Green gets opportunities playing 4-on-3 after Steph gets trapped. And Steph doesn't even need the basketball to create those advantages. That's the difference. Magic created advantages by controlling possession. Steph can create advantages simply by passing half court. There are possessions where Curry never touches the basketball and still cause the defense to break down. That's incredibly rare, and you don't see that happening too often. And another thing is the scoring gap between these two guys is massive. This is probably Steph's strongest argument, right? Magic was an excellent scorer. Steph is one of the greatest scorers ever. Curry has multiple seasons averaging around 30 points per game. He's won scoring titles. He became the first unanimous MVP in NBA history in 2015-2016 while averaging 30 points on absurd efficiency. And here's what makes Steph's scoring particularly valuable. He doesn't need to dominate the basketball to do it. That's extremely important when comparing all-time players. Some superstars become less effective when you put another ball-dominant player beside them. Steph arguably became even more dangerous. Put another creator next to Curry, and now Steph can relocate, he could cut, sprint through screens, attack defenses that are already compromised. We watched that with Kevin Durant. Instead of Curry's value disappearing because another superstar arrived, Golden State became one of the most devastating offenses ever assembled. It's like the Avengers. And Durant benefited enormously from the attention Curry commanded. And that scalability matters. If I'm building the greatest possible five-man lineup, Steph Curry might be easier to fit into any lineup than almost any other superstar in NBA history. But on the other side, Magic destroys Steph as a traditional playmaker, right? Because we have to give Magic his advantage. If we're talking about traditional point guard responsibilities, Magic Johnson wins. Steph is a very good passer. Magic is arguably the greatest passer ever, and that is a big difference. Magic could manipulate an entire defense through passing alone. He could generate offense in transition better than almost anyone. He could feed Kareem. He could find James Worthy cutting. He could throw skip passes across the court. He could post up and facilitate. And because of his size, he could see passing windows that simply aren't available to a 6'2" or 6'3" Steph Curry. Magic's career 11 assists per game compared with Curry's roughly 6 per game makes that gap even crazy to think about. But even that doesn't completely explain it. Magic was essentially the quarterback of the Lakers. Steph is more unusual, right? Golden State frequently used Draymond Green as the passer, while Curry became the weapon the defense was chasing. So if your definition of a point guard is who is better at running an offense with the basketball, then it's clearly Magic. But if the question is who creates the better overall offense, now we have to start talking about Steph. But as we all know, basketball goes both ways, right? So what about the defense? This category is interesting because neither player should be confused with Gary Payton. Magic had obvious physical advantages. At 6'9", he had positional size Steph Curry could never replicate. He could rebound extremely well for a guard and had more versatility in terms of which players he could theoretically match up against. But Magic was not some elite lockdown defender. Steph has spent much of his career being targeted defensively because opponents would rather attack him than Klay Thompson, Iguodala, Draymond, or any other Golden State defender. But Curry has also improved significantly defensively as his career progressed. He got stronger, his positioning improved, his effort has generally been good, and he became better at surviving switches and holding up physically. And so I'm not giving either guy the edge in defense here. Magic gets the edge in size and rebounding. Steph has probably been underrated defensively because of who surrounded him. But defense isn't deciding this debate for me. The offense is. And so Magic's playoff career resume is ridiculous. Here's where Steph runs into some trouble with me. Because Magic went to 9 finals. He won 5 championships. He won 3 finals MVPs. And he did all of that in a relatively short career. Steph has 4 championships, 2 MVPs, including the first unanimous MVP. His 2022 championship was particularly important to his legacy because that championship removed one of the biggest arguments people used against him. No Kevin Durant, an older Warriors core, Golden State wasn't viewed as the overwhelming super team anymore. And Curry went into the finals against Boston and delivered one of the defining performances of his career. He averaged roughly 31 points per game and finally won his finals MVP. That title changed the Magic-Steph conversation because now Curry had a championship where nobody could reasonably question whether he drove the offense or not. But Magic still has the superior traditional resume. I mean, more championships, more MVPs, more finals MVPs, more finals appearances. If your GOAT rankings are heavily resume based, Magic should probably remain ahead. But we have to talk about their help, right? Obviously. This is where the conversation gets controversial, right? Magic Johnson played with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of the greatest basketball players ever. Not only one of the greatest basketball players ever, universally regarded as a top 3 player in NBA history. I mean, that is way, way different of a conversation. He also played with James Worthy. He played for Pat Riley. Those Lakers teams were loaded. But at the same time, Steph Curry wasn't exactly carrying mediocre rosters throughout his dynasty either. He had Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala, Steve Kerr, and for 3 seasons he had Kevin Durant. And so neither player gets to play the I did everything alone card, right? They both benefited from historically great organizations and teammates. The difference is that Magic entered a Lakers organization that already had Kareem. Steph helped turn Golden State into what Golden State became. Before Curry, the Warriors weren't considered an NBA dynasty waiting to happen. Steph was the central piece around which the entire identity was built. That deserves consideration. And so let's go prime versus prime. Magic's peak was incredible. From roughly 87 through 90, he was operating at an MVP level every season. He controlled games in a way very few players ever have. But Steph's 2016 peak might just be higher offensively. I'm talking 30 points per game, over 50% from the field, over 45% from three, over 90% from the free throw line, 402 made threes, a 73-win season, unanimous MVP. The finals loss obviously hurts that season historically. You can't ignore blowing a 3-1 lead. But if we're asking how dominant Curry was individually during the regular season, there might have never been another guard who terrified defenses from that many areas on the court. You couldn't go under screens. You couldn't drop your big. You couldn't give him space in transition. You couldn't lose him off ball. And if you trapped him 30 feet away, Golden State would play 4-on-3 behind the trap. There wasn't a correct defensive answer. That's why Steph's peak argument is so powerful. And then longevity also changes the conversation, right? This is another advantage for Curry. Magic's career was unfortunately interrupted when he retired in 1991. We all know why. I'm not going to go into it. But he later briefly returned in 1996, but his true prime NBA career was pretty much 12 seasons. Curry has played much longer, and what's impressive is how long he's remained elite. Steph entered the league in 2009. Years later, defenses still have to completely alter their schemes because of him. That's important because all-time rankings aren't only about how good you were at your absolute peak. They're also about how long you maintained that level. Magic packed an unbelievable amount of winning into a short career. Steph has given you more years of elite basketball. And so the question becomes, do you value Magic's concentrated dominance or Steph's combination of peak and longevity? And another one is who makes their teammates better, right? Because we are talking about point guards at the end of the day. This category might decide how you personally view the debate. Magic made teammates better in the most obvious way possible. He gave them the basketball in advantageous positions. He generated easy buckets, he controlled tempo, he organized the offense. He knew where everyone needed to be. Steph makes teammates better in a different way. He creates the space. Imagine being a role player and your defender can't completely help off you because Curry might relocate behind the three-point line. Imagine being Draymond Green and getting to attack 4-on-3 situations because two defenders jumped Steph 30 feet from the basket. Imagine being Kevin Durant and getting single coverage because defenses are terrified of Curry's movement. Steph's gravity is basically an invisible assist. It doesn't always appear on the box score, but it changes possessions. Magic directly creates the opportunity. Steph creates the environment that allows the opportunities to happen. Both are forms of playmaking. They're simply different. Who would I build a team around? It would be the question, right? Because this is where I think Steph has his strongest case. If you gave me 4 average NBA players and you told me make this group good offensively, then I'm going with Magic because Magic can control everything. He can be the primary ball handler, primary passer, transition engine, and the mismatch creator, right? Magic can manufacture offense. But if you gave me 4 great players and said, create the greatest possible team, then I might have to choose Steph because Curry requires fewer possessions to generate superstar impact. He doesn't need to monopolize the ball. He can play beside another superstar creator. He can play beside an elite center. He can play beside another scoring guard. He can dominate with 25 dribbles or 5. That makes Curry one of the most scalable superstars ever. And when we're comparing players at this level, scalability matters. And so is Steph Curry better than Magic Johnson? Here is my conclusion. Yes, he has a legitimate argument. Anyone saying that there is absolutely no conversation is holding on to outdated hierarchy. But I don't think Curry has clearly passed Magic, right? If we're ranking careers based primarily on accomplishments, Magic still has the edge. 5 championships to 4, 3 MVPs to 2, 3 finals MVPs to 1, 9 finals appearances, and arguably the greatest pure playmaker the game has ever seen. But if we're asking who is the more dangerous offensive basketball player, Steph has a serious argument. If we're asking whose skill set fits easily beside another superstar, Steph might win. If we're asking who changed defensive strategy more dramatically, Steph got that. If we're asking who had the better longevity, then it's Steph. But if you ask me who had the better traditional point guard career, then it's Magic. And that's why debating this topic is so fascinating, because they represent two completely different definitions of the position. Magic Johnson expanded what a point guard could physically be. Steph Curry expanded what a point guard could do to a defense. Magic made basketball bigger. Steph stretched the basketball further. And so where do I personally have it? Magic Johnson is still number one, but Steph Curry is close enough to make that argument legitimate. And depending on what you value, I can't call somebody crazy for putting Steph first. Magic has the superior resume. Steph has the superior shooting, scoring, and off-ball impact. Magic might be the greatest traditional point guard ever. Steph might be the greatest offensive weapon to ever play point guard. And there's one thing that could make this conversation even more interesting. Steph's story isn't even finished. Every additional elite season adds to the longevity argument. Every major playoff run strengthens his resume. And what if he gets another championship? That could completely change how basketball history remembers this debate. Because at that point, we might stop asking, does Curry have a case against Magic Johnson? And we might start asking, what exactly is Magic's case over Steph Curry? Right? I mean, that's crazy. If you like these kind of videos, like, subscribe, because we just passed 300 subscribers, baby, and we're going to 500.